South Korea shares its new UAV program to counter incursions from the DPRK, while Indonesia mulls declaring a national emergency. Plus, Myanmar enlists 40,000 to monitor upcoming elections, and dengue explodes in Thailand. These stories are coming up next. This is the Asia Brief. Hello there, everybody. Steve Miller here on this Thursday, the 29th of October, 2015. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's go ahead and get started with what could be the next escalation of conflict on the Korean Peninsula. The DPRK is believed to have a fleet of militarized drones. Several have been found crashed in South Korea. These small blue planes, presumably painted to match the color of the sky, appear to be no more than model planes outfitted with cameras. They've been flown over several military compounds and even reportedly over the president's house, the Blue House. Now South Korea is stepping up its own game and researching countermeasures. Shim Hyun-chul, head of the Unmanned Systems Research Group at KAIST University, says, "The fear is that the drones are very easy to build. They can do a lot of things. It appears as a very new threat." And you know what? He's right. These are small, light aircraft that can be flown on one-way missions. They don't even need to carry a large payload to prove to be an effective weapon. Imagine strapping on a small explosive, flying it over the border, and dropping it on a training ground or a ship or some other facility. Shim goes on to say, drones are very small. Drones are very hard to detect. Even if you detect it, there are very few things that can be done. The likelihood that the DPRK will carry out a wave of drone strikes anytime soon is remote. But in terms of disrupting the status quo, using drones is a far more effective weapon than the continual threat of nuclear annihilation. Pyongyang could choose to periodically sacrifice a drone or order to drop a payload someplace and face only a minimal response from Seoul. We've seen how the United States relies on drone sorties today, and it stands to reason the DPRK is going to follow that path. The Indonesian haze crisis is truly one that is out of hand. It even prompted President Widodo to cut short his trip to the United States and fly back home to try and get a handle on things. It's been previously reported that some estimates place that fire containment and smoke eradication could be 3 years down the line, which led to an international effort to try and help tackle the problem even faster. But even with that help, Indonesia hasn't been able to contain the fires. Now the country looks like it may declare the haze a national emergency to free up more assets to address the issue. This is already on top of thousands of troops previously deployed. While that on the surface sounds like a great idea, and a course that should be followed, after all this haze is affecting several other nations, the worry is that the declaration of a national emergency may allow businesses to up contract prices. Another factor is that some members of government feel that the fires don't affect the entire country. And to be perfectly honest, that's not exactly true, because the haze is hitting other nations and is clearly affecting Indonesia's relationship with its ASEAN neighbor countries. Some residents have become so fed up with the government's response and the escalating health problems that they're facing that they have in fact decided to head to the fire's front lines and start putting out the blaze themselves. Considering that the fires in Sumatra have generated smoke and haze that has reached the Philippines, which is more than 2,000 kilometers away, the evidence is more than clearly presented that this is in fact a national emergency, and every option to douse it should be employed. Myanmar will be holding a national election in a little over a week on November 8th, and in an effort to keep things running smoothly and to ensure that law and order is achieved at polling stations, the government has enlisted some 40,000 to serve as police officers. May Wong was on the scene and asked what criteria for service was, and an official told her that the recruits shouldn't have any tattoos and just appear to be fit. Now, these recruits are coming from the civilian population and include construction workers as well as former military personnel. They'll be hired for only 1 month, and every recruit will be identified by a red shoulder strap and an arm tag. Now, unlike regular police officers, they will be unarmed. General KAIST said, "We don't give them guns because people may find it threatening. When the police and soldiers are deployed at polling stations, the people may misunderstand. That's why we recruit the normal civilians as the special police for the security." Now, for their service, the 40,000 or so recruits will be paid about $1 per day and then receive about $120 bonus at the end of their tenure. Now, some that are being recruited say they're using this as an opportunity for future employment. I've previously mentioned about the state of dengue fever making its way through several Southeast Asian countries, and with the winter peak travel season quickly approaching, some may be eyeing Thailand as a possible destination. And really, why not? It is an absolutely beautiful place to go on a winter's holiday. But Thailand is now reporting close to 100,000 cases of dengue fever, prompting health officials to become concerned. According to the Department of Disease Control, the number of cases has more than doubled from last year, with more than 100 patients succumbing to the disease. Now, there's a prevailing belief in Thailand that dengue primarily affects children, when in fact mosquitoes, well, they don't really care who they infect, and anyone can be bitten by a mosquito and ultimately get the disease. As a result, some doctors aren't treating adults as quickly as they could because they aren't identifying it, because they're not looking for it. They are recommending those affected with dengue fever take papaya leaf juice twice a day, noting that it tends to increase blood platelet levels very quickly. Now, that's specifically with those that have been identified and have dengue hemorrhagic fever, and while that information isn't clinically conclusive, an Indian firm is currently developing a commercial drug based on that idea. If you're experiencing sudden high fevers, severe rashes, headaches, pain behind your eyes, joint and muscle pain, extreme fatigue, possibly nausea, those are the primary symptoms of dengue fever, and health officials are advising that if you experience any of these, go to a hospital, go to a clinic, and get yourself checked out as quickly as possible to ensure that you have a full and speedy recovery. Well, my friends, those are today's stories. Please let me know what you think. Do you think we will see more drones carrying out targeted strikes from Pyongyang? What can be done to curb the haze in Southeast Asia and specifically in Indonesia? And have you had dengue fever? Please take a moment and send in your comments. The Asia Brief is a special feature of the Asia News Weekly podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends, and if you haven't, subscribe. Subscribing is free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. You can subscribe on our website, asianewsweekly.net, or in your favorite podcast application. You can also keep up with more news from the region by following Asia News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. And if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, be sure to drop us a line. That email address is podcast@asianewsweekly.net. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, remember to be true to yourself and to always be awesome.